Dr. Battle. This is just me presenting my art project. I did follow the first rubric, so I did illustrate 4 different concepts. I did it in like a storyboard manner where I did 4 different pieces of artwork to kind of represent 4 different time periods and concepts. So in the first image, I drew the first Thanksgiving, and I wanted this to represent racial othering. As you can see, I drew all of the pilgrims standing in front of the food for like front and center, while the Native Americans, the Wampanoag people, are pushed to the back in the outer circle. It's just kind of to show that despite this being a happier time and a very civil time between the 2 groups, the white pilgrims wanted to keep this line of separation between the two, that they wanted to express that they were never going to see the Native Americans as equals despite their generosity and help to make the first Thanksgiving possible. I also incorporated the religious aspect of it, that they were thanking God for the land and the harvest and not really considering the amount of generosity and kindness that the Wampanoag people have shown them during the last year of their very hard journey to America. The second image was a little bit more abstract. It's the crumpled up and torn version of the Tears of Repentance, and I wanted this to demonstrate how religious conversion was used as a tool for domination of the Native American population. It was just kind of to show that when they signed this contract and gave up their Native American culture and started to pray and eat and talk and dress like white settlers in exchange for their safety, when push came to shove, the white people deemed them as still inferior and that they would never really achieve this white status, that this was just a tool of manipulation and exploitation on the white settlers' part. Despite the sacrifice of everything the Native Americans had to be safe from the white settlers, it did not keep them safe. This contract was void the minute that they saw any level of resistance from them and other Native American tribes. And that's why I wanted to illustrate it as crumpled up and torn and just trash to the white settlers. It meant nothing to them after it fell out of use for them. The next image I also did was a little bit more abstract. It was to represent the hegemony of the and violence of the the Trail of Tears. It was to show that how much death and violence occurred due to the very government-sanctioned domination of the Native American people, especially the Cherokee people in this case, with the Indian Removal Act that pushed them out west. The blue lines show the most populated trails that they were forced on, and obviously it is splattered in blood because of the huge amount of death and violence that was seen on the trail. It also isn't as clear on here, but there's white speckling. I wanted to show how brutal the winters were, and due to the lack of preparation on the American government's point, how much harder this journey was for them because of these brutal winters and lack of food and clothing and shelter. Anything that was a bare necessity, they didn't receive it. I also outlined the rivers in red because that's where the most fatalities occurred. Because of the lack of preparation, they didn't have the things they needed to survive when the rivers were frozen and couldn't be crossed. And then the last image, I wanted to show the epistemology of ignorance in our current day society, and that's why I illustrated a current day kind of illustration of Thanksgiving. I think as Americans, we're taught about the first Thanksgiving as this very happy, very civil time of union, and that it's kind of just how history went, that everything was fine after the first Thanksgiving. Everybody made nice and got along, when in reality, obviously, they were subjected to things like the Trail of Tears and Tears of Repentance. And it's showing how we as Americans get to live in this society of ignorance and continuously steal from Native American culture. As you can see, like, I drew all this kids wearing the construction paper headdresses that I made in school as well. And the father and the grandmother are both wearing Redskins merch, and I know that they've changed their names since, but many teams still use offensive names for their sports teams, and several people support them. And they use Native American, like significant things in Native American culture as just easy room decor. And then on the TV, they have Peter Pan playing, which has offensive caricatures. And then on the shelf, I included the Twilight series, Pocahontas, and the Lone Ranger series, which is very hard to tell on here, but it's just an example of how we continuously appropriate Native American culture because we have this very idealized construction of what Native American history is, when in reality, it is things like the Trail of Tears. It is the things like the Tears of Repentance and conversion and assimilation schools. But we choose to focus on the happy moments and the falsified version of our reality. So, yeah, that's my 4 pieces of art to show the 4 different concepts that I focused on. So, thank you, and have a good day.